Hello, welcome to Human Design Center. I'm glad that we share a common interest in human design, the science of differentiation, the art of living your life according to your unique design and genetic matrix that sustains it. Today you are going to learn or recap, as the case may be, about Hexagram 10, Treading, the behavior of the self. Hexagram 10 is part of 4th trimester of SIRIUS, where we accomplish our purpose through transformation, spirit, mutation. Gate 10 corresponds to God Vishnu, God of preservation and protection, maintenance of cosmic balance and order, maintaining righteousness, meaning God of Dharma. Role of Vishnu for humanity is to maintain harmony and order through purposeful action, being the God of monoteism. Vishnu represents the power of creation and destruction that work together to find the balance, order, or Dharma in the world. Zodiac sign, Sagittarius, for the 1st and 2nd line of Gate 10, and Capricorn for 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th lines of Gate 10. Gate 10 flows within integration channels, connecting in different channels with gates 57, 20. Gate 10 is also part of the centering circuit as a part of individual circuits group, which is about present hearing, acoustic, melancholy, empowering myself and empowering others. The centering circuit keyword empowerment. Center G magnetic monopole regarding identity, direction, love. The harmonic gates are 57, 20, 34. Let's see each channel. With gate 57, the gentle, intuitive clarity forms the projected channel of perfected form, a design of survival, a channel of integration. With gate 20, contemplation, awareness in the now, forms the projected channel of awakening, a design of devotion to the highest principles, a channel of integration. With gate 34, the power of the great, forms the generated channel of exploration, a design of following one's own convictions, a channel that is part of the centering circuit within the individual group circuits. The opposite gate is number 15, modesty, extremes, amino acid, arginine, relevant organ, chest, heart, tarot card associated, 5 of coins. Regarding arginine, we have to observe that there are 6 gates that share the same amino acid, 4 gates in the 1st trimester, 25, 17, 21, 51, gates of Michael, and also gate 10 and 38 in the 4th trimester, both belonging to Vishnu. So, Arginine is helping us to accomplish the purpose through mind and initiation, and also through mutation in spirit. When you see Arginine in a body graph, you might think of the possibility of, let's say, transferred behavior, meaning a person might have 10th gate activated but behaving like a 38, or a 17 behaving like 21st gate. We talk about the not self, obviously. Just meditate about this. If we balance the problems of our life regarding the behavior of self, gate 10, or regarding control, gate 21, is it possible to get to balance the amino acids in our body? And, as a consequence, can we balance our health? How this balance can be obtained? Maybe in 1st trimester through thinking, by changing a mindset, and in the 4th trimester by taking care about our spirit, accepting mutation, paying attention to the state of spirit, behaving in resonance to our real state of spirit, to our real self. L-arginine is an amino acid that helps the body build protein. Your body usually makes all the L-arginine it needs. It is also found in most protein-rich foods, including fish, red meat, poultry, soy, whole grains, beans, and dairy products. Most healthy people do not need to supplement with arginine because it is a component of all protein-containing foods and can be synthesized in the body from glutamine via citrulline. Arginine is made by the body as follows. The epithelial cells of the small intestine produce citrulline, primarily from glutamine and glutamate, which is secreted into the bloodstream, which carries it to the proximal cells of the kidney, which extract the citrulline and convert it to arginine, which is returned to the blood. This means that impairment of kidney function or small intestine can reduce arginine synthesis and thus create a dietary requirement for arginine. For such a person, arginine would become essential. Arginine plays an important role in cell division, wound healing, removing ammonia from the body, immune function, and the release of hormones. It is a precursor for the synthesis of nitric oxide, making it important in the regulation of blood pressure. Arginine is necessary for T cells to function in the body and can lead to their deregulation if depleted. So, besides observing the transferred behavior that I talked about earlier, it will be very interesting if you connect arginine together with the 6 gates that are related to it, with the gates which are relevant for glutamine, gates 13 and 30, for T cells, gate 26, and even with the gates relevant for serine, since arginine in 10th gate is opposing serine in the 15th gate. Your conclusions will be a pleasant surprise. So since we've located the gate on the mandala and on the body graph, and we have a general summary of the essential characteristics of gate 10, now let's dive into the 10th gate message and energy. Hexagram 10, gate 10, the underlying code of behavior which ensures successful interaction despite circumstances. We come to this place in which the vessel gets poured out, the 10th gate. It is by far the most complex of all the vessel gates. It is a gate that provides the identity to the integration process. It's a pure chemistry for survival here in gate 10, where we have arginine. This is chemistry in your body. It's in your cells, in every one of them, either as activation, imprint, or as receptor. We are all receptive to the power of Vishnu, the source of your perfected form, the source of your convictions, and also the source of awakening. Everything through the chemistry of arginine and its connections in our cells. By the nature of their mechanics, the integration gates are more complex. The 10th gate is preceded in the wheel by the 25.6. When we come to the 10th gate, we come to the gate of our nature. In that sense, we come to a gate of being in the world. The most powerful conditioning gate is the 10th gate. It conditions the behavior of the world through a very complex system. But the whole business of the 10th gate is the question that is raised in the 25.6, which is, how does one live life as an expression? How does one express innocence in life? How does one express one's rhythm in life? How does one express the existential quality necessary for being in the experience of life? All that is focused on the 10th gate, because it is out of this gate that the vessel of love is poured into each and every one of us as an individual process. We are all conditioned by this individual process of the 10th gate. The 10th gate represents the possibility to love oneself. And that possibility, the ground or the framework of loving oneself, is to love being in the world, because the 10th gate is about living in the world. It is about being a part of the life process. This gate is about self-love, self-empowerment, and behaving in ways that align you with your true self. It is a gateway that resonates with the energy of living your authenticity and honoring your values and principles. It can also influence how individuals present themselves to the world, influencing how others perceive you. A strong sense of self often drives individuals with gate 10, and they have a natural ability to stay true to who they are. They can strongly influence others through their behavior and the example they set. Their actions and behaviors come from their core beliefs and values, which lead them to live authentically and with integrity. This way, they take care of their arginine level, and therefore they take care of their health. This gateway encourages individuals to love and accept themselves as they are, boosting self-esteem and self-confidence. When functioning is healthy in this gate, this empowers individuals to stand up for their beliefs, express their individuality, and live their truth without fear of judgment or rejection. At its essence, this gate governs the alignment between our inner truth and outward actions, making it a powerful force that drives authenticity, personal integrity, and the behavior that follows from that connection. The essence of Gate 10 is also the question of authenticity. Are we living and acting in a way that is true to who we are? This gate challenges us to align our external behaviors with our core values, pushing us to stay true to ourselves, even when external forces or societal expectations might pull us in different directions. Thanks to such people, we can better understand the main lines of behavior in society. It is best for such people to surrender to the behavior that comes from them and not even try to evaluate it. Self-love arises from a sense of surrender to your natural pattern of behavior. Your pattern doesn't change and occurs naturally if you don't try to influence it. This is how you express your love towards yourself. You have unlimited access to it. Self-love also reveals love for others. Gate 10 isn't just about self-expression. It also brings an innate understanding of integrity. If you have Gate 10, you must acknowledge the importance of living a life that reflects not just what you believe, but how you behave based on those beliefs, aligning internal values and outward action. In this state, you lead by example. This gate of behavior reflects the optimal scenario of your survival on the material plane and overcoming it. Here lives the love of life, the love of being alive. It carries a sense of certainty in being yourself, and also the mystical experience of self-love in the present moment, in the now. As we already learned, it's a gate of loving to be yourself and to be alive. And when Gate 10 is connected to Gate 20, you can express this love for yourself in words and also in through behavior. Depending on the line of the Gate 10, people express one of 6 models of behavior: modesty, hermit, martyr, opportunist, heretic, role model. When this gate is not connected to another gate, when it does not form a channel, these people are preoccupied with how other people behave. Also, it is important to differentiate between 10th gate in projected channels and 10th gate in generated channel. Behavior comes out after recognition and invitation for projected channels, or it comes out as a response for a generated channel. In any of these cases, it is advisable that authority and strategy to deliver the message of Gate 10 in that specific line. Above the 10th gate in the Black Book, it says, the underlying code of behavior. Code here is a genetic catchphrase, if you will. We have a code of behavior that is imprinted in us at a very early moment, inside of us, in the structure of the form that we are going to be endowed with, something that we could see when we were looking at the first 88 degrees of the sun. This behavior ensures successful interaction despite circumstances. Everything about behavior is what makes life easier. The moment that you are not being yourself, life is automatically going to be more difficult for you. The more you are being yourself, the stronger your capacity for survival in this life, regardless of the circumstances. To be yourself is the great success, and when the 10 is connected to the 20, to be yourself is the opportunity to be awake in the now in the world. This whole business about a code of behavior is something very important when you do analysis. You have come to understand how the structure of a hexagram and the thematic or the keynotes associated with each of the lines work. So you know that first lines are introspective and so on. What is important is to recognize that every single line in its structure also has a code of behavior. In other words, each line has its code of behavior, which can be seen in the 10th gate. If you want to understand the nature of fourth lines, look at the behavior of the 10.4, the opportunist. Then you can see the opportunism built into all fourth lines. That is the correct behavior. To wait for that opportunity, to wait for that moment in which you are able to effectively externalize your influence. If you are a second line and everybody can look inside of you, it means to be a hermit. To be careful about those who can penetrate into you and take you away from your nature. In other words, in order to look at and to understand the nature of any given line, You can also see that not only do you have a keynote for its structure, but more than that, you have a built-in reference in which you can see the code of behavior that best suits that particular line. That code of behavior for the lines is very important to keep in mind when you are doing somebody's chart. Think of the nature of genetic continuity. In genetic continuity, we know that lines in similar positions in the structure have a deep relationship to each other. From the basic teachings of human design, we know that, as a global entity, we live inside of an emotional environment which is generated by all the solar plex combinations. We know that out of the solar plex will come the ultimate recognition of the spirit of humanity. Think about the nature of that spirit in terms of how it functions in the world. The 22.1 is called second-class ticket. This is one of the things that human beings deeply feel at the foundation of their nature, which is that somehow they are all given second-class tickets. Somehow, they do not get the opportunity to belong or fit into a place where they think they deserve to be. Think of that genetic continuity as it applies to the 10.1. Walking through the 6 lines of the gate. 10. It's a process that will bring clarity to you in relation to nuances of the content and expression of the 10th gate. At the end, we will touch upon the crosses of incarnation, where gate 10 plays its role and become part of the purpose. Let's see the 6 stages of development of this energy and possible dualism in its manifestation. Gate 10, line 1, modesty. The line is called modesty. There is a nickname for this line, the chameleon. Do not confuse it with modesty in the 15, but understand that the nature of this line is that it asserts not an ego, but its selflessness. In doing so, what is there is the overview, and an innate sense to know and accept one's place. Everything about being a human being is about being within a hierarchy. There are those above, there are those below, there are those more successful and those less. It is always the way that it is going to be. This is the nature of the world. The 10.1, the correct behavior, is simply to accept one's place. That is all. Nothing more, nothing less. You are equally comfortable with princess and as comfortable with freaks, and you may have lived in all kinds of environments. Inherent in the 10.1 is the acceptance of one's place, wherever that place happens to be. The first line is also about investigating, as any first line, finding your place in any situation, and blending in. We're not separate from life. Life is you. This first line is all about looking deeply into life, looking deeply into all the experiences. Challenges come up at different moments in life, but everything you've met along the way can be dealt with. There is always a way through for the first line, and you just have to look back at some of the challenges that have happened to you in the past, and you'll see that no matter how overwhelming it seemed at the time, one way or another, it all worked out. The sun is exalted here, in the first line, bringing a valued sense of purpose no matter what the position. In the acceptance of one's place is a sense of valued purpose. Everybody is looking for their purpose. The purpose lies in fulfilling your behavior, in being yourself. All the themes of love are pointed at the same thing over and over again. To be yourself, to accept what it is to be in the world, and to accept that the world is both a hard and easy place. Only then is there a sense of purpose. The moon in detriment. The affliction of oversensitivity and hurt feelings. Everything about the self is under risk from the outside. The self is always under risk from the outside. The self by its nature is selfless. It is not ready to make any claims, and yet, the moment that it is connected to the outside pressures conditions it to take responsibility for its nature. Think about the 10.1 child. The 10.1 is always acting correctly, even if you do not like it. Always. The moment that you try to tell them that they are not acting correctly, you deeply offend them, and they suffer from hurt feelings, of course, because inside of them, genetically, they know, this is all about knowing, that their behavior is correct. In the White Book, the ability to know one's place and how to act despite circumstances. Accept your place. It is hard for human beings to just accept what the gods have dished out for them. It is the only way. This is the correct behavior, and it is the foundation of all behavior. It is the foundation of the behavior that creates perfected form. It is the foundation of the behavior for the perfection of conviction. It is the foundation of the behavior to be awake. Accept your place. Gate 10, line 2, the Hermit. Here, in the 10th gate, you have a theme of behavior, a code of behavior for all second lines, which is being the Hermit. The overview says, the successful sidestepping of behavioral requirements. Behavioral requirements is conditioning through isolation. The second line always has a natural approach to life, but they can get overwhelmed when there is input from other people that they don't really understand. Outer disputes can easily become inner ones unless you sidestep other people's discord altogether. When there's a challenge, second line should find that peacefulness, find that calm inside. Contentment comes from not confronting impossible life dramas. This doesn't mean to hide from life. It simply means, by your authority and strategy, to answer the question, do we confront life or do we live life? Is life an ongoing challenge or is life just a play? For the second line, when they're in a natural space, it's a play, and what appears to be a challenge can just be something that is played out in a very simple way. All second lines tend to suffer from the fact that they don't know that there is somebody who will burst in on them and see them and try to condition them, because they can see into them. The Hermit is the correct behavior. Withdraw rather than accept conditioning away from what is your nature. You recognize that certain people bring a lot of problems with them that always need solving. A second line person would simply rather not have this constant interruption in their life. Even if you are able to fix problems for those people, you do not like to be distracted from your inner contentment. Maintaining that natural internal peacefulness, that's what the second line is all about. Mercury exalted, mental functions enrich aloneness, Mars in detriment, the angry exile. Whichever way that comes out, it is better to withdraw than to accept the conditioning. To be the Hermit is so important. The other thing is, in the genetic continuity, as in the 12.2 purification, the Hermit is somebody who has to rigorously withdraw from negative forces. That is the role of the behavior of the Hermit. It is not simply to withdraw, but to withdraw from negative forces, not from all forces. Negative forces are those forces that apply conditioning and try to change the nature of the Hermit to bring the Hermit out of his isolation. In the White Book, independent behavior through isolation, or isolation to preserve independent behavior in the face of conditioning. That is the most important aspect of it, because that is the real key to all second lines. The moment that somebody is trying to break in on your second line and condition you, withdraw. It is better for you to withdraw and be in your own process, because this is what is healthy, and it is the only way in which you are going to find love for yourself. Think about that. What happens is that when people recognize you for something and they pull on you, you tend to confuse that with love. It is not, nor should it be. That is, those people that can look into you and try to pull you, they try to pull you by getting you to recognize your nature and turn it into something motivated. They try to pump you up. This has nothing to do with the role of the Hermit. The role of the Hermit is to avoid such conditioning in order to have an opportunity to be awake. Find your own sanctuary. Gate 10, line 3, the Martyr. We go on with the story of the third line, which is about martyrs. Think about the nature of what the third line is. It is always in a situation, lower trigram, in which it tries to get out of its process, only to be confronted by the outside. In the moment of being confronted by the outside, it is being forced to adapt because it was not prepared for what was there on the outside. In the nature of behavior, when you come to the third line, you come to trial and error in the process of behavior. Now, Remember that third lines can lead to the sixth line of wisdom. That trial and error in behavior can be something that is of enormous value to humanity, but at the same time, it is a trial and error process. What may be discovered by living out that trial and error is something else. It may turn out to be something that is of value. So, the third line is always the pioneering line. It's about experimenting. It wants to get involved. Through trust in yourself, you align with personally worthy causes. This alignment binds surrendering. In this case, surrendering does not mean giving up. It means that when a challenge arises, you don't pretend it isn't happening. You surrender to the fact that you're in it. You're on the spot. There's a potential challenge here. And the challenge is this. Can you align with personally appropriate causes, or are you running your life for somebody else's cause? Make sure that you are honoring your own reality and not someone else's. There is a risk, sometime, to seek attention and approval from others. It's very easy for third lines to become overwhelmed and to rely on to someone else's solution or way of doing things. And as the pioneer, the third line goes through making all kinds of potential mistakes in life. This is why they learn what doesn't work so well and make sure to never make the same mistake again. The martyr overview line. The futile rejection of standards based on a just awareness. Futile rejection. It does not do any good to reject it. Here are human beings who, without choice, have a genetic code for behavior, and that code of behavior, because it is trial and error, will often be in conflict with the behavior of those that surround it and meet it. No matter how much they live out their own nature, they are constantly going to meet resistance from those around them. Of course, it is not easy for them to give up that nature. It is, after all, what they are. The earth exalted, the martyr as an enduring example, whose behavior is ultimately enshrined. When a human being is living out their own nature, whether anybody likes it or not in the now, that has nothing to do with whether or not it is truly of value. The 10th gate is individual and deeply related in that sense to the first gate in the self, to its individuality. It speaks about this process of time that, as a creative process, to have different behavior than other people is not something that is recognized in your own time, necessarily as a possible variation that others can follow. It simply may be seen as disruptive, antisocial, freakish, and a threat, most of all. After all, behavior is the most important conditioning we have. It can be very threatening to have somebody whose behavior has impact on others and who becomes a role model. 6th line. The other thing is that being individual, this is a behavior that can be mutative and can bring about change, and most of all, individuals and individual aspects are always seeking attention. Therefore, the behavior of the 10 and the 10.3 is always getting attention. You should not act like that, Matthew. Stop picking your nose, Matthew. He may do it for the rest of his life until somebody slaps him in the face, until his behavior so violates the standards or the norms that somebody resists to it. Remember, all of these gates of the self are always dependent on what they meet as beings on the other side. The moon in detriment, the martyr complex, the active pursuit of martyrdom for personal aggrandizement. These are people who make a living from their behavior. The way these people act in the world attracts attention, and because of that, they maintain that behavior in order to continue to maintain that attention. Remember that here, the ego is touched. In the White Book, behavior that is ultimately challenged by others. People carrying the third line of Gate 10, when someone challenges them, should be advised that if it is your nature, martyr away, because the more people resist you, the better you know that you are living yourself. The third line, people are easily upset by what other people say or comment on about the nature of their behavior. But there is another side of their reaction, behavior as a way to attract attention. If you don't like my behavior, watch me because I will not change it. And they use it to their advantage to attract attention. They can, they do, and they will. Then you see the impact on the self of having other forces come and impose on them and condition them. You know about the 10th gate being a conditioning factor for humanity and how important it is for humanity as a conditioning force. But that will give you a false impression. It is easier to generate the love of humanity than it is to generate the love of self. It is easier to generate the love of the body than it is to generate the love of self. It is easier to be one with universal love than it is to love oneself. The 46 always has to live with the conditioning of the 29 and its commitment. The 25 always has to deal with the conditioning of a willful ego. But the love of self, the behavior, gets conditioned in so many different ways. It gets conditioned by the sacral in terms of whether or not it even has the power to follow its convictions. It gets conditioned by the splenic system, an awareness that will condition the nature of the behavior. It gets conditioned by being able to deal with conditioning forces placed on it from all kinds of different directions. Somebody who has the 10 Mars 2057 but does not have the 34, the force that conditions the behavior is always going to come out of the 34. Somebody who only has the 10 will be open to all three of these powerful conditioning forces, 20, 10, 57. It is always dependent on the nature of somebody's design, but you have to see the difficulty. The difficulty is to maintain one's nature. The little martyr that keeps sticking their finger in their nose, the more we try to correct that kid into not doing that, the more we try to tell them that it is bad for them, the more we try to stop them in the now, we are not benefiting them. What we are doing is to not let them be themselves. We are conditioning them to see that their behavior is repellent, and that because their behavior is repellent, so are they. Who are we to judge? All behavior, particularly in the first 3 lines, is under enormous pressure from society because this is society's way of counteracting the natural conditioning capability of the 10th gate. They condition it in return. To be oneself is the only way that you find self-love, and there are so many forces that try to keep you away from that. When you have the 20 connected to the 10, you have a voice that says, I am myself now. To be awake is simply about being yourself in the now, and regardless of what your behavior is, if you are a martyr, you have to be a martyr in the now, and if you are a martyr in the now, you are awake. If that is your nature, if it is your nature to take the slings and arrows of everybody else's comments because they do not like your particular behavior, it is your nature, and the moment that you succumb to that, you fail in this life. You will not love yourself. You will not be awake, but asleep. One of the things about the nature of life is that life for a human being must involve a deep level of non-interference and recognition of the other. Everything about being awake is dependent on who is in your life. Most people who carry the 10th gate are not manifestors in the now. Most of them require other people in order for them to come about. It comes back to that very important standard that is established in the first line. To know and to accept one's place means that you know the place not only for yourself, but for others. You know who belongs in your place with you, and you know whose place you belong in. This is about knowing the other. Everything about love is dependent on knowing the other. If you have the feeling that you have never known so much about yourself, it is because you know so much about other human beings. It is out of this knowing that you learn so much about the nature of who you are, and make out of that who belongs in your life and who does not. This is what it is all about for all of us. This deep recognition that we are not alone, that we are always in the aura of others, and the auras of others are always conditioning us in one way or another. You have to be clear about your nature. You have to be clear about what is there, so that you can be healthy, so that you can be of value to the totality, and that you can enjoy being you in this life. That is about understanding people. We are deeply misled in this life. That child with its behavior does not realize that it has a right to that behavior because everybody is opposed to it. It is not nurtured in that sense. To nurture that, all you do is that you do not interfere with it. You can educate. Everything anyone can do in this life is provide information, provide data to the other. Here, you might use the nature of what is called positive reinforcement. If you see something awful in somebody, wait until you can see something that is not. If you have a child that is always making mistakes, wait until they get it right. If you have a human being that is not themselves, don't take them into your life until they are. That is positive reinforcement, and that is one of the things that we all need from each other, and we can't get it until we get to a point where we understand each other. Understanding each other is the whole thing here. With the information that you have from human design knowledge, in terms of the nature of types, you have a way of encouraging people to live out their own nature. We expect manifestors to ask. If you deal with a generator, make sure to ask him to do things rather than telling him to do things so that he has an opportunity to respond, because that is his nature as a generator. With the knowledge of human design and the people around you in your life, there are correct ways for you to deal with people. Encourage them to be themselves, and then you don't become part of the problem by just mindlessly conditioning them, even though you know better. This is very important in being yourself, and let people be their own self. One of the main tasks that we have in our process is that by recognizing and being aware of the other, we have to encourage them to be themselves. We have ways of doing that with the knowledge that we have. The more people we have that are living out their nature, that are encouraged to live out their own nature, the better and the healthier all of us are going to be, and the better is the environment that all of us live in. One of the things to recognize about having the knowledge of the other is that you can encourage them to be themselves, not by telling them what to do and how to act, but by the very recognition of their nature, by encouraging in the way you interact with them so that you don't become a conditioning force. You become a healing force. Gate 10, line 4, the opportunist. Dealing with the upper trigram, we have a different process at work because the fourth and fifth lines are rather gifted in the sense that they are going to recognize not only that there is one other source of conditioning, but that they are going to come to grips with all three other sources. In other words, the fourth and fifth lines of the 10th hexagram have deep transpersonal skills because they do have recognition of the impact of the other. The fourth line as a behavior is a code for all fourth lines for this one-trackedness, the fixedness. Its behavioral code is the opportunist, the acceptance of norms until a successful transformation can be engendered. The whole thing about the nature of the behavior in the fourth line is that it has to wait for its opportunity, which means that it cannot give up behavior until there is a place to go with that behavior. For example, if you have a job and you are a 10.4 and you want a new job, you cannot quit your job until you have a new one. This is opportunism. You stay with the nature of your fixedness until there is an opportunity, or you wait simply for that opportunity to externalize your fixedness. Again, there is always the possibility that the opportunist has enormous influence. To be able to wait for the right moment to act can often lead to a great deal of good fortune or success. The acceptance of norms until a successful transformation can be engendered. It takes time. Accept the nature of your behavior until the behavior can really change. Somebody who has the 10.4 and is deeply conditioned and they want to learn I Ching or chemistry, they are not going to be able to change their nature. They will not be able to change their nature until that opportunity is really there for them. That opportunity has to be there. For example, you are a generator and you are 10.4. You cannot just suddenly become a generator. You have to wait for that opportunity when somebody says to you, "Hello, could you help me?" And you listen to your sacral sound, you respond, then you can jump into that behavior. This is to wait for the opportunity. You are ready for when opportunity knocks and appreciate what an opportunity means to you. Because whatever challenges life puts before us, there is always an opportunity there. By mentally adjusting your behaviors, you transform anything into a potential advantage. You have to be aware that you can manipulate almost any situation by adjusting your behavior and attitude. When you feel that life is too much, you simply haven't made the adjustments necessary to meet the situation. A few adjustments in behaviors, a few adjustments in attitude, and all of a sudden the game's on again. That's how the fourth line people are very influential. They are also very open to the possibility of giving guidance to others by drawing people together and getting them all on the same page. Fourth line is always looking for personal benefits and transformation in any interaction. Uranus exalted. Transformation that is transcendence to a higher code. The whole thing about the opportunist is that you are looking for the opportunity to externalize your nature, and that is the highest possible code. There is nothing higher. Mercury in detriment. Opportunism as a game or mental exercise, or both. Most of that is because the 10th gate has no guarantee that it is going to have access to a motor in order to manifest. So often, it is speculating on those moments of opportunity when they may not arrive, or they are the kind of people who think, here is a perfect opportunity to make a lifetime passive income, but never do it because it is a game, and because they do not have within themselves, within the nature of their design, the real opportunity to live out that opportunism. In the White Book, the maintaining of behavioral patterns until the right moment and opportunity for transformation. It is so important for 10.4s just to sit back and wait for that moment to live out their nature. The other side, altering one's behavioral patterns in order to take advantage of opportunities. It is the same thing, just on the other side, but it is also speculative. It is waiting for those opportunities, and they may not be ready to do that at that moment. Remember, not everybody who has the 10.4 is going to be a manifester or a generator. They may not have the opportunity to act it out, and then it becomes something game-like or speculative. One of the really clear genetic continuities is between the 28.4 and the 10.4. The 28.4, as any fourth line, is all about holding on. It is a holding on until the opportunity to take a risk, to hold on to what you have got until you really have that opportunity to go beyond that. It is so important to see that the 28.4 and the 10.4 are both deeply risk-oriented, and the whole thing is that one cannot afford to take that risk until one waits for the right moment. Any premature action in that sense is going to lead to difficulties. So, the genetic continuity there is very important. This 28.4 is holding on, and usually for the betterment. In other words, if you hold on and wait for that opportunity, it is always going to be more beneficial. If a 28.4 does not hold on, that does not mean that it fights for the wrong things. It means that it fights for the right things at the wrong time. Gate 10, line 5, the heretic. The 10.5 has enormous impact on society. After all, the 10 is part of integration, and integration is the backbone of being in the body, of being individuated. The 10.5 is where society projects onto behavior and onto how it wants to see behavior. Society sees the behavior at its most interesting as being heretical. It is society that sees if your behavior is unique and individual, and it in fact may be dangerous to the whole. All fifth lines are at one time exciting and at another time a threat to society because it is the source of society's projections and therefore can be the source of society's disappointment if those projections fail. When you come to the fifth line, you come to the heretic. As an overview line, it says, direct and overt challenge to norms. One of the things to realize about the 10.5 is the need of society for a heretic, for a behavior that will challenge the norms. It is society that creates the heretic, that creates the general, that creates all of these roles, the savior, the saint, all of these figures. It is society that creates it out of its own needs and its own projections. The heretic is created by society because they project onto the behavior of the 10.5 that it is either very exciting or very threatening. The fifth line is always in the position of being a leader or a guide to others. It can see the potentials, it can see the possibilities, but it always lives in a projection field of what other people might expect of it. Jupiter exalted. the ability to succeed through the understanding and expression of higher principles, Mars in detriment, the burning on the stake. What exactly is the difference? There is a profound difference. Remember that the fifth line is there to challenge the norms of society. In the White Book, principled behavior, which directly challenges tradition. This is not a challenge to the way an individual acts in the world. This is not going up to somebody who has a rooster haircut and picking on them because they have a rooster haircut. This is not dealing with tradition. This is just dealing with unusual behavior. When you look at the other side, the Mars side, behavior, which directly challenges behavior and is eventually punished. If you go up to the punk and say, "This is ridiculous. Nobody should walk around like this," don't be surprised if they rearrange your face. The fact of the matter is that the heretic is at its greatest when they attack the framework of behavior that has to be changed. Because the 10.5 is the vanguard of changing behavior. If they just attack the behavior on the surface, they are the ones that suffer. They get burned at the stake because it becomes very personal. They are here to try to challenge the underlying tradition. If they do that, ultimately, they can be regarded as a very special force in the world. How they are going to react is again subject to the conditioning that they receive themselves. The 10.5 that has no fuel and no access to awareness or no access to manifestation is always going to be conditioned by others. A 10.5 being conditioned by somebody else's awareness may end up attacking somebody's behavior and being punished for it simply because they were conditioned that way, rather than that being the most natural and healthy way for them. It is a very important line because, again, society has been calling for this. It is calling for a heretic that will challenge tradition, and in challenging tradition, provide mutation for behavior. Very interesting is the genetic continuity here, particularly because the genetic continuity, as seen through the mystical process, is the relationship between the 10.5 and the 49.5. The 49th gate is a gate of being the sacrificer and the sacrificed. It is the gate of emotional principles, and the fifth line in its exalted form is about providing practical provisions for revolutionary times, in the same way that the heretic really brings something very practical when they deal with the tradition itself. That is what they are equipped to do, to look at the tradition and to see whether or not a tradition deserves to stand or whether or not it is time for mutation of behavior. Practical provisions. In the detriment of the 49.5, you have the same Mars in detriment, which is all about power. The moment that you make things personal is the moment that you get into a power trip with people. For example, you say to them, "Your behavior stinks," and they return, "Your behavior stinks." Nothing productive will come out of that. In order to change the behavior of society, what has to be dealt with and challenged is the underlying tradition out of which that behavior has risen. Practical provisions, otherwise expect to be sacrificed. Gate 10, line 6, the role model. Line 6 is a personal example that is impossible for others to ignore. You feel and you'll know, if you've got the 10th gate with the 6th line in your design, that everybody expects you to be a role model and they are quietly watching you out, discreetly. They know that you're the example here. You do not make demonstrations with or against the lion you've met, suddenly, in the jungle. But you just gently approach the lion and make friends with the lion. That means you have the ability to make friends with the challenge. On the other side, you must know that you can very easily find yourself overwhelmed by everybody else's concerns. You always get drawn into other people's issues because you can see there's a better way of doing things. So, the key is to continue to honor yourself while you interact with others, while you bring successful approach in dealing with potentially challenging situations. Be true to yourself. Take the freedom to interacting with all the challenges that life might put in your way. That is the whole point here. From another perspective, if you will look in this life for people that are the most self-conscious, you will find them in the 10.6. They are constantly under pressure, constantly self-concerned about the nature of their behavior. Built into them is the understanding that behavior can be hypocritical. They recognize that. The line is called the role model, a very powerful line, the perfect expression of the norms through action rather than words. They learn their self-consciousness well with their harmony to the 20.3, self-awareness, or through the 57.3, acuteness. They learn to recognize very quickly in their life that it is possible to say things, but not necessarily possible to live them out. They see that very early. They recognize within themselves that their behavior is very important. But no matter how much they want to be able to behave perfectly, they always run into obstacles because they end up being conditioned by the people around them that they are dependent on. Even the words can only come out if there is a connection to the 20. And the awareness can only guide it if there is a 57, and the energy is only there if there is a 34. Remember that 6 lines look to the whole circuit, but the first thing a 10.6 looks at is integration. It says, how can I maintain the holiness of myself? How can I guarantee my survival in the world? How can I be me? How can I do what is right for me to do in the world? All of that ends up being dependent on so many other beings. Pluto exalted. The constant example that refocuses the complacent on the basic integrity of set behavior. They know how important behavior is. If you have a 10.6 parent, you will discover that while they are picking their nose, they tell you, don't pick yours, bad behavior. The 10.6s recognize that correct behavior is very important. What is frustrating is that, because they know that better than anybody else, and because so often they can't live it out, they would rather not be seen. They would rather sit on the roof and not be anybody's example because, even though they can be hypocritical, they suffer a great deal from their own hypocrisies. The other side of this is Saturn in detriment. The hypocrite. Do as I say, not as I do. We have seen this as a gift in all 6 lines, the 40.6, that sits on top of the house and looks to its family and says, I see who is messing things up here and can easily point it out. The 10.6 has this deep capacity to point out to you what is the correct behavior. By the way, you always can tell to these people, go ahead, tell other people how to behave. It is part of your gift, and don't feel self-conscious because you yourself can't act the way you tell other people to act. Everybody has to accept their limitation, whatever it happens to be. This 10.6 leads to the 20.6, to the line of wisdom. There is an enormous potential here to be awake to the beauty of self, but this is not an easy process. In the White Book, the enduring value of expression of the self through action rather than words. In the end, it all comes down to the same thing. It comes down to how you live in the world. The only action that matters, whether it is action that you generate or manifest, or whether it is action that is conditioned as manifestation or generation in your life, it that you cannot be taken away from your nature. As long as you are not taken away from your nature, you are an example for others. This is the great value of the 10th gate, and, as an example for others, you are a source of wisdom for them in their lives. Of all the 6 lines that we have looked at, none makes a more beautiful turn than the 10.6, because the 10.6 goes to the 58.1, it goes to the joyous, and it goes to the most beautiful line of the 384, the line of love of life. In the end, the 10.6 must find for itself love of life and the vitality that comes from loving life. It is not the vitality that creates the love of life. It is the love of life that creates the vitality. The 10.6 sits up there and knows the correct behavior, but it also knows that that behavior is what brings about the love life. And out of that love of life comes the power to correct the collective, comes the power to establish new patterns, comes the power to release the example in the world. When we go through this process of looking at the G Center, it brings you back to human design mantra. You are unique. You have no choice. Love yourself. Now let's move on to a different perspective to see how the 10th gate sustain or communicate the purpose of life through the crosses of incarnation that are established when the conscious sun is placed within the 10th gate. 10th hexagram, right angle cross of the vessel of love 4, consisting of following gates 10, 15, 46, 25. When engaging in enriching and empowering individuating behaviors, they push the world toward love by being fully themselves and loving their difference. The energy of your cross is based in love, love of spirit, love of the body, love of humanity, and love of the self. You are the embodiment of love. Your love is driven for you to find self-love. Your cross is looking for a way to express itself as an individual example of love for all to see. Juxtaposition, cross of behavior, consisting of following gates 10, 15, 18, 17. The critical opportunist looking to leave the right impression with their own behavior, while quick to organize or challenge that of others. Your cross has the energy to guide and correct the behavior of others. This energy includes opinions to evaluate the logical process and correction to enhance how it is done. The purpose is to get at a better way of doing things and bring greater joy to live. Realize, however, those people that you are correcting and guiding are not always going to like your suggestions. Be sure to follow your human design type and strategy when engaging in your corrective process. Left angle cross of prevention 2, consisting of following gates 10, 15, 18, 17. People both oppressive and liberating who bring correction by trying to prevent unhealthy behaviors or actions in others in society before they happen. Your cross abastars carries the energy to examine behavior. You analyze behavior and then make commentary to correct it. The driving force here is to prevent hardship or injury by correcting the behavior and cutting it off before potential disaster happens. This energy can be a bit judgmental and dictatorial at times. Be aware of your delivery, as it will be more effective if you soften it some of the time. You are here to help others avoid potentially harmful behavior by correcting what seems risky and applauding what appears good. I hope this material is helpful and supporting for the development of your human design knowledge. Please share if you enjoyed listening and subscribe if you want to be notified about any new posting of informative learning materials regarding human design. Thank you.